Hey friends, I'm Holden Slattery here with my old friend Mark Ingram. Just a couple of music and history buffs doing the first episode of Origin Sample Remix, where we're going to be talking about the origin of some great songs we both love that were remade or sampled in hip hop, turned into remixes or covered, et cetera, et cetera. And we're going to take you through a journey in time to explore how these songs lived on and gave birth to more great songs. So if you're watching on my Looking Back Now YouTube channel, we're going to include links below to the 6 songs we're mainly talking about. So you can listen to those, subscribe, and make a comment. Let us know what you think of the program or these songs. So how you doing, Mark?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to do this. It was a fun research process, and I'm excited to be on your YouTube channel, Holden. So this will be a good time.
All right, so I'm going to start with Don't Look Any Further by Dennis Edwards featuring Siedah Garrett. So Dennis Edwards, he was the front man of the Temptations for much of the group's existence. There was a little bit of changes that happened in the group over time. But for the few people, if you don't know who the Temptations are, I hope you at least know a couple of their songs, like My Girl or Get Ready. I didn't know much about Dennis Edwards as a solo artist. He sings this song with Siedah Garrett, who did a lot of backup singing and duets and wrote songs for other artists. In fact, she co-wrote Man in the Mirror, which is one of Michael Jackson's greatest songs. And at the time, it was like kind of the first song that Michael Jackson did without writing himself. So Don't Look Any Further just has a really compelling bass line. It's a fun song. It was his only big solo hit, and I haven't really heard it get any airplay in our lifetime. I just kind of recognized the bass line, but I would definitely put this in my rotation.
Yeah, it was definitely not a song I'd ever heard previously, at least not on the radio stations in my neck of the woods.
Yeah. So that brings me to Paid in Full by Eric B and Rakim. So this was the title track on their 1987 debut album, Paid in Full. It samples the bass line from Don't Look Any Further. And at this point, hip hop is really less than 10 years old, at least when it comes to recording. And Rakim, at this time became not only a big commercial success, but totally changed the genre with more complicated rhyme schemes, lyrics that were way more ambitious than what anyone was doing at the time. You've probably heard all that before. But this, I think, is just an iconic Eric B and Rakim song, one of their best. And I would say it's one of my favorite beats of theirs. So it starts out thinking of a master plan, because ain't nothing but sweat inside my hand. So I dig into my pocket, all my money spent. So I dig deeper, but still coming up with lint. So you get that imagery, it's simpler than some of his other lyrics, but like really, really vivid. The song's about Rakim being broke and trying to make money working a 9-to-5 job while also pursuing his dream of a rap career. And he's looking back on ways he got money illegally in the past, but he's grown past that. He says he's become righteous. So it's their first studio album. So at the time when Rakim wrote it, he probably was broke. And it's just a song about dreaming big and working toward your goals. When I was in college, Daryl McDaniels from Run DMC actually came to give a talk, and he referenced this song and that he liked the way Rakim said he used to be a stick-up kid, robbing people, but that he's not doing that anymore. And what he was getting at was he thought there were too many rappers, especially nowadays or at the time, who were really talking about a life of crime in the present tense, even after they were famous. So I think, Jay-Z kind of found a niche where he talked about what he used to do, selling drugs and things like that, but reflecting back on it versus, this is what I do. So that was memorable for me.
Yeah, that's a common theme in a lot of hip hop music, is looking back on the sort of troubled past of
Mhm.
growing up in some of these communities.
Yeah, totally. So that brings me to the paid in full cold cut remix, 7 Minutes of Madness. That's all part of the title. So this remix is not just one of my favorite remixes. This is really just one of my favorite songs ever. So Cold Cut was an English electronic music duo uh, made up of Matt Black and Jonathan Moore. So they made the remix of this song, and it features Israeli singer Ofra Haza from her song Amnin Naalu. And, Haza's parents were Jews from Yemen who emigrated to Israel. And her singing just has this really distinctive Middle Eastern style. Now, it's important to note the official music video for Paid in Full is a shortened version of this remix. And I think that's because this remix version really took off and became bigger than the original. But they weren't going to put a 7 minute song into a MTV music video. So,
Sure.
looking up
Right.
about this song, I mean, what I first saw just was on Wikipedia was that Cold Cut was commissioned to make this remix. Not sure what that exactly means because there's another interview with Rolling Stone where Eric B and Rakim kind of say they were over in England to perform and this was just played for them and they were like, where did this come from? What is this? And kind of a little mad at first. But we can look into that more, but it may have been something where it was done and then they decided to use it and put it on their album, make it their own official remix. So I don't know how it originally came about, but eventually Rakim started to really like it, and people started to like it, like especially in Europe, but also in the U.S. Like, just was really unique sounding. And I think that Middle Eastern sound is something Rakim explored later on. There's one song called Addictive by Truth Hurts. It was way more recent. It's also got a Middle Eastern sound and starts out with that same first line, thinking of a master plan. So check that one out. But yeah, this remix, it starts with a guy saying, "This is a journey into sound." That's the voice of British actor Jeffrey Sumner, from a record that was a journey into stereo sound, where they were talking about stereo equipment like in the late 50s. Yeah, it's just got some other spoken lines, just some really random things, like Humphrey Bogart, from the 1946 film The Big Sleep. There's a line from him where it says, "Now wait a minute, you better talk to my mother." Um, well, but I think the best part is Ofra Haza, like how her singing just adds to the flavor of the song. And then there's also things from Eric B and Rakim, like "Pump Up the Volume," "Dance to the Record," things Rakim said in other songs, like "I Know You Got Soul," that were put onto this remix. And one other thing, you can, if you watch the movie Old School, you can see there's a frat party where Snoop Dogg comes out and does a cover of this song. And I remember when I saw that, I was like, oh, that's a little weird. It's Snoop Dogg, he's doing a Rakim song, but I figured it's a concert. People do covers. He's paying homage. Um, but actually, the year before Old School came out, Snoop Dogg had a song called "Papered Up," which was completely paying homage. He used that whole Rakim verse from this song, and the chorus made it sound more like Dennis Edwards singing in "Don't Look Any Further." So I didn't realize that. So maybe it wasn't so much a cover in the movie, but Snoop doing his own song, which is really essentially, paid in full. Um, but yeah, I would definitely recommend some other Rakim songs. "I Ain't No Joke," "Follow the Leader," "Know the Ledge," "Let the Rhythm Hit Him." But this one's right up there for me. What'd you think, Mark?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I have a few thoughts here. I enjoyed listening to your songs. So as far as the original goes, I watched the music video. I don't know if you had a chance to see it. And I don't want to like make fun of it because it is an older video. It was before music video technology kind of advanced and music videos became a big thing. But I just remember really just being amused by watching them sing together. And he has this such like a swagger to his demeanor, and the way he's looking at her is very lascivious. And it's just like a song that I feel like it's one of those great songs that you take your girl back to your place and you're trying to set the mood. So you throw on a song like that and it really kind of creates the vibe that you're going for. So I thought the song, honestly, I thought it was a little corny, but I can appreciate it at the same time.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah.
As far as, go ahead.
No, you keep going.
Okay. As far as the Rakim song, I'm not a huge Rakim fan, but I do appreciate his delivery. He has one of the cleanest, most just crisp deliveries of any rapper that I've ever heard. And it's crazy considering he was one of the original rappers, and he has an unmatched delivery that is just, there's other rappers that we'll get into, obviously, like Biggie, who has a great delivery, but he's just right up there in that top tier as far as just flow, and you can understand every word he says. And I enjoy, mumble rap and lyrics that are buried into the music, but I also appreciate Rakim's delivery. And then lastly, the remix, that was actually my favorite of all three. It had a mood to it. And you talked about a lot of the elements in that song that I think created that feel, but it had such a unique feel. And it was a 7-minute song, which is long, but it's one of those songs that goes by so quickly, that you don't feel like you're like slogging through a really long song. It's a very quick 7 minutes. It has a great, just kind of calming vibe to it. And yeah, I enjoyed that one probably the most out of all three.
Yeah, same.
I'll say one other thing real quick.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of you quoted a lot of Rakim, and in my research, and you may have come across this too, but Rakim was a member of, I think they called it the 5 Percenters, which is like an offshoot of Islam and like the Nation of Islam, I believe. And I don't know a lot about that religion and the specifics, but it originated in New York City, and a lot of like early hip hop slang comes from that religion and some of those beliefs. And members of Wu-Tang, which we'll discuss later, are also members of that same religion.
Oh, it's really interesting. Didn't realize that. But I heard that about Rakim, but not about Wu-Tang. Yeah, great. Well, you want to launch into to what you've been listening to for this?
Sure. So for my songs, I chose Walk On by Dionne Warwick. That was my original. For my, kind of switching the order, but for my remix here, I chose Isaac Hayes' Walk On By. And for my sample, I went with I Can't Go to Sleep by Wu-Tang Clan featuring Isaac Hayes. So I'll talk a little bit about the original here by Dionne Warwick. This song was actually composed by Burt Bacharach, or Bacharach. I'm not sure how you say his name, but I know he's a famous songwriter. Bacharach. How do you say it, Holden?
I've heard Bacharach. That's the way I know. Could be wrong.
Okay, we'll go with Bacharach here. That's fine. But he composed this song, and the lyrics were by Hal David. They wrote it for Dionne Warwick. This was a song that was very successful. It was number 6 on the Billboard charts and number 1 on the R&B charts in 1964. It was nominated for a Grammy Award. So it was a very successful song. One thing about the song I really liked is she did a German version of it. And I thought going into it that it would be kind of silly, like, her singing in German. It just seemed like odd. But it was a beautiful song, and it captured every bit of emotion that the English version did. So I thought that was really cool. This song is, even though I hadn't heard it, like Rolling Stone has it as like number 70 on one of the greatest songs of all time. So, take lists and rankings for what it is, but it was a popular song. So I'll go in here to the Isaac Hayes version. I will say that a lot of bands and artists have covered this song, and some other artists covered the song and did very straight ahead versions of it, didn't change a whole lot from the Warwick version until Isaac Hayes came along. And this was in 1969. And he really stretched the form of this song and made it into something that, in a way, has almost been like jet fuel for hip hop, because he took this song, he stretched it out to 12 minutes, and then he kind of did a funk soul version of it. But so many hip hop artists have sampled it. Over 100 hip hop artists have sampled this song in different ways and different elements from it. But a little bit about the song. It was recorded in Memphis. They wanted to create a sound, like an orchestral sound to this whole album. It's off the album Hot Buttered Soul. And that album only has 4 songs on it, but they're all like really long songs. And most of them are cover songs of Burt Bacharach songs, in fact. There's only one original Isaac Hayes song on that album. But in the process of creating that, they wanted this really big sound. So they recorded like the guitar parts and the piano parts. Hayes was playing an organ and his singing. They recorded that in Memphis. And then they took those recordings to Detroit, where a bunch of well-known engineers who are, highly regarded in the engineering game. I won't list them all, but they added this technique, which is called like delayed reverb. And basically it gives a sound, it makes the sound appear as if it was recorded in a larger room than it actually was. So it gave it a bigger sound. And that technique, and I won't go into the weeds on that because, you could do that, but that would take forever. But that technique was used on a lot of other Motown records, and it was used in a lot of commercials in the 1960s. So these engineers were working on Hayes records, but they were working on Marvin Gaye records and a lot of other great Motown records to give it a distinctive sound. It's a beautiful song. It's another one of those songs that's a fast song, even though it's 12 minutes long. So I really enjoy it. It's a song I can listen to and get work done to. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that is pretty amazing. Yeah, once I listened to it a few times, I got really into it. Yeah, it seems totally original for the time and revolutionary.
Yeah, and Hot Buttered Soul is a highly regarded album in the sort of the funk, soul, R&B genre. I listened to some of the other songs. It's I don't want to say it's a challenge, but it's a very unique listening experience. He has a 19-minute song on that album, and the first 9 minutes is almost like spoken word poetry. So it's definitely music to sort of, if you have some time to kind of sit back and take it all in. You gotta have a little patience.
One thing I heard was that he was friends with Martin Luther King, and after King was assassinated, he kind of was really keeping to himself for a while, and then he kind of sometime after he recorded this album and put a lot of emotion into it. I think this is a very emotional song, this Walk On By. I don't know if it's referring to that, but
yeah,
referring to the general mood he was in.
Right. I think the lyrics can be interpreted in a lot of different ways, and I think even maybe the intent behind the Warwick version lyrics probably maybe has a different meaning than perhaps his intent with his lyrics. You know what I mean? Like the phrase "walk on by" can be interpreted loosely.
Right. Yeah. Basically, yeah. What I think it's you see that person walking on the street or somewhere and they're crying, and you don't know whether you should, say something, see if they're all right or not. In this case, I think they're saying the singer is saying when they see the person who kind of broke their heart, that's when they start crying. But they don't want it to be acknowledged. They want to hide it. To save whatever pride they have left.
Right. So, are you suggesting perhaps that maybe the Warwick version was like a love song, whereas the Hayes version, he's speaking about Martin Luther King, or maybe experiencing regret because of that?
I don't know, not exactly. I was just that was just what I heard about where he was, mentally when he went to record. But yeah, maybe, but not so much the lyrics, because they're kind of remain the same, but you know, yeah, you can take the lyrics, but then you can put all the, you know, the feeling into the song and the instrumentals, and obviously there's a ton there, you know, a whole sound, a lot of different sounds.
Yeah, definitely a lot of different sounds. You know, that's probably what helped in making it so widely sampled. You know,
Mm-hmm.
there's elements, hip hop artists, a bard, who that are just like the guitar parts or the organ parts. It's not necessarily always Hayes' singing, which is great, but it's so many little elements of that song are iconic.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll go into my final song here. This would be the sample. I chose "I Can't Go to Sleep" by Wu-Tang. This song came out on an album that was released. It's called The W. It came out in 2000, which was actually a later Wu-Tang project. You know, if you think 36 Chambers came out in 1993, and then they had that big double album. And then they went and recorded, a lot of them did solo projects, and they kind of came back together in 2000 for this project. It's an album that was quite successful, but it also has a very thrown together quality to it. It's a little bit rougher around the edges than even previous Wu-Tang projects. And you can say Wu-Tang strives to be a little rough around the edges, but even this particular album has a little bit of a thrown together feel to it. Now it has my personal favorite Wu-Tang song of all time, which is Careful, Click, Click, and has a very almost hilarious music video. I won't go into it, but that is a great song off this album. But for this particular pod, I am going to look at "I Can't Go to Sleep," which is also a wonderful song. The first verse is by Ghostface Killah, and the second verse is by RZA. Both verses parallel each other in terms of the emotional arc to what they're saying, as well as a lot of the things they reference. And I'll talk about a couple of those. The beat borrows heavily from "Walk On By," and Isaac Hayes does sing the chorus here. But Ghostface starts off, he's mentioning a lot of the traumatic elements and things that he's seen in the urban community. And he specifically even references the assassinations of Tupac, Biggie, Big L. He mentions the death of Big Pun. You know, he references the crack epidemic, and he also includes a lot of religious imagery as well. And he seemed to suggest that those people who have like inflicted the violence on his community and communities like his will receive judgment before God. It gets very intense as he's progressing through this imagery. He has an image in here, feds jumping out of their Jeeps. "I can't go to sleep." Babies with flies on their cheeks. It's hard to go to sleep. And that image in particular was very, it stuck with me. You know, the idea, we see this footage of children in starvation and squalid conditions with flies landing on their cheeks. We see these commercials and these documentaries, and it kind of implies that they don't even have the strength to wipe away those flies. You know, it's such a hard life, and he's able to convey so much information with just one image. And I thought that was really very touching in a way. He goes on to talk about, he's driving through the community. He says he's going to get he implies that he's going to get weed. He talks about driving past the spot where you get PCP. He's including this drug imagery, at least the way I interpreted it, as a coping mechanism for the horrors that he sees around him in his community. And then at that point, he's getting to the end of his verse, and his vocal quality, it goes up a notch. He's almost like yelling, and it's almost like yelling, screaming, and crying at the same time as he says he's going to bring war to the people who've hurt him. And it's just a very, it's like a call to war. It's a call to action that he has right there at the end of his verse. And it's very powerful and goes perfectly with the music. And then Isaac Hayes comes in with the chorus. And Isaac Hayes, his chorus seems to suggest also that he's wanting to see people come together and put the past behind them in these communities. Even though they've seen horrible things, it's a message to try to end war, so to speak, and urging people to move on from the past. It's kind of uplifting in a way, I think. I think it's trying to contrast the message, the darker message that Ghostface is putting out. And you see a little bit of that echoed in the second verse as well. RZA comes in. RZA, not known necessarily for his rapping. You know, he's more of a producer. You know, he's extremely successful. He's the brains behind Wu-Tang, at least in my opinion. And his verse is quite good in this song. He references numerous assassinations as well, just like Ghostface did. He says they shot Malcolm in the chest in front of his little seeds, which, you know, it's hard for me to quote like rap songs and not sound corny, but like that was a powerful image as well, referencing Malcolm X getting shot in front of his children at an event, or I think that he was doing, which is just, you know, it's a brutal image. He has numerous other images of assassination in this song. Oh, Jacqueline, you heard the rifle shots crackling, her husband's head in her hands, you tried to put it back in. And that's a reference to the Kennedy assassination, and a vivid, gruesome one at that. You know, we've seen that horrible footage of the Kennedy assassination, and Jackie O is, you know, arms around her dead husband, trying to like put him back together. And then it even goes on. He's still talking about Jackie O. He says, America's watching, blood-stained ink blotches. And that is a reference I didn't pick up on at first, but when you study it, it's a reference to the inauguration ceremony of LBJ as he's being sworn in as president after Kennedy was assassinated. And she's standing next to him with blood on her outfit still. So he's talking about that. He references Medgar Evers getting assassinated. He references, as we mentioned before, a lot of imagery about the 5 percenters, and basically trying to wrap his brain around everything that he's seeing, the horrors that he's seeing. And his verse ends with him like at a crossroads. You know, he says, what should I do? Or let me see here. They got me trapped up in a metal gate, just stressed out with hate, give me no time to relax and use my mind to meditate. What should I do? Grab a blunt or a brew, grab a tutu and run out there and bring this violence to you. I'm paraphrasing there, that last part. But he's facing a choice, just like Ghostface. Do I inflict violence on those who hurt me, or do I turn to drugs and alcohol? Neither one is really a good choice. And it highlights sort of the rock and a hard place situation that they're in. Hayes finishes out the song. He says, don't let the game make you lose your head. You should be calling the shots instead. The power is in your hands. Stop all this crying and be a man. And I don't think that's like a message to like, don't ever show emotion. I think it's more like, don't let the world destroy you. You know, you have to take control of your destiny. That's how I interpret it, at least. And I guess others could interpret it in different ways as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah. And the really noticeable thing for me, and you know, in the first verse, Ghostface Killah is really like crying for a lot of it. And he and RZA, they both kind of go in and out of the mood a little bit, or kind of, you can see kind of mood changes midway through their verses. But that crying and rapping, the only time I ever heard that before was Kendrick Lamar on the song "You" on "To Pimp a Butterfly," and Kendrick does it even more intensely. But I think he definitely, you know, took influence from this. But yeah, in that song, Kendrick Lamar was like, sounds kind of really upset, maybe drunk, and just like tons of emotion. So that's only other, those are the only times I've heard someone rapping sounding like they were crying.
If I could say one thing about that, that is what really appealed to me about this song, is I had never heard anything that was that emotional in a hip hop song. You know, they're showing so much, you know, kind of vulnerability in a way, which is, you know, rare in hip hop, because it's a very sort of machismo culture in a lot of ways. You know, show strength, don't show a lot of emotion unless it's like just demonstrate power. But with this song, even though they're kind of in that same mold, it's a lot of, you just really feel it. I really felt it, and it kind of showed a human side to a lot of hip hop, you know, and I was new to hip hop when I first heard this song. So that was just a whole different style that I'd never heard.
Definitely. Well, yeah, I mean, thanks for sharing those songs. I really enjoy them. I'm going to put them in my rotation. So yeah, it was great doing this with you, Mark.
Yeah, you too, Holden. I enjoyed it.
All right, we'll talk soon. Take care.
You too. You too.